Okay.
Sujay, yes, yeah.
Okay, so in today's session, we'll try to continue with HTML part 2. That is HTML market tag. First, let me go with this. The purpose is to display with scrolling option. If you want to display any text with scrolling, then you can make use of market tag. And we are going to go with HTML iframe tag. This is to display the file content. The purpose of iframe tag is to display the file content in output screen. It can be PDF file content, text file content, even BMP file, JPG file, PNG, etc. Iframe tag is to display the file content. It can be PDF, text, BMP, JPG, GIF file, PNG, whatever. HTML audio tag is to load and play audio file content. And it supports all types of audio file formats. Similarly, there is HTML video tag. This is to load and play video file content. And this also supports all types of video file formats. So for these features, we don't have SAP UI5 related screen elements. So that's the reason why indirectly we can include these things in our original Fiori application. For this type of features, we don't have direct screen elements in UI5 framework. So we can indirectly make use of these things in our Fiori applications by using some HTML class. First, let me understand HTML market tag, the syntax. So you can open same test.html file. You can go inside body section and you can implement below code. Test it in a normal manner, same like yesterday. After that, we'll try to include in original Fiori application. I want to display text with scrolling, then you can use market tag. Okay, let me try here. Inside body section, I'm trying to use market tag, begin tag, end tag. And within this, you can use bold tag or you can use heading tag. You can use anything. For example, let me use heading tag H1. And for that, let me provide some text. So within market tag, we are using heading tag H1. For that, we are trying to provide some text here. So this text will be displayed with H1 heading tag, and also the text will be displayed with scrolling option because of market tag. The text is displayed with H1 heading tag and the text will be scrolled because of market tag. So you can use one HTML tag inside another HTML tag. H1 is one of the HTML tag that can be used inside another HTML tag, for example, market tag. So one HTML tag can be used inside another HTML tag. Okay, let me run this. You can run as web application. So here you can see now there is some text that is scrolling from right to left. You can see this. That is because of market tag from HTML. The top section text is scrolling because of market tag. Right, so it is working fine. Let me copy this version. Now say suppose I want to display text with scrolling and text with specific color and font style. I want to display text with scrolling as well as text with a specific color and font style. So what you can do is you can add one style attribute for this. For this one, you can add one style attribute. All HTML tag supports style attribute. Like a property, but we can call it as an attribute in terms of HTML point of view. So market tag supports style attribute. Not only market tag, the style attribute is a common attribute applicable for almost all HTML tags. So for style attribute, you can make use of something like color. For example, red. And you can use semicolon. For example, font style. And you can provide the value. For example, bold or italic, something like this. So style is a common attribute. You can use it on any HTML tag. In this example, we are using it on market tag. Color is a property, CSS property. Red is a value. Font style is a CSS property. Italic is a value. So at HTML tag level, we are assigning CSS properties with its corresponding values. Okay, let me run this now. Now you can see there is a text scrolling from right to left, and the text is italic and the text is displayed with red color. Because of style attribute, you can notice the difference. Earlier it is black color, now it is with red color because of style attribute. Okay, so let me copy this version. Style attribute is a common attribute. It is applicable for almost all HTML tags. As an example, we have used it on market tag, but you can use it on other HTML tags with appropriate CSS properties. Style attribute is used to assign CSS properties with its values. It is used to assign CSS properties with its values. And it's a common attribute for almost all HTML tags. In this case, if you closely observe, we are trying to assign CSS property directly at tag level. Okay, this is like HTML tag. Market tag is an HTML tag. Style is an attribute. Color is CSS property. Red is a value. Font style is CSS property. Italic is a value in this case. So this is like HTML tag with style attribute. Style attribute purpose is to assign CSS property with its value. Similarly, you can have another CSS property with its corresponding value. With style attribute, you can assign multiple CSS properties with its respective values. And here we are trying to use CSS properties with values directly at tag level. We are not maintaining these properties in a separate file. We are directly adding at tag level. So this we can consider it as internal CSS. Technically, this type of technique, we can call it as internal CSS here. Internal CSS, that is adding CSS properties with its corresponding values directly at tag level. That we can call it as internal CSS technique. Assigning CSS properties with its values directly at tag level. We are calling it as internal CSS here. Just remember that it's a common attribute. You can use it on any HTML tag, and the purpose is to assign CSS properties with its values. Okay, just remember that. Now let me go with HTML iframe tag. In the coming days also, we are going to use HTML iframe tag when we go for file upload, file download concept. In Fiori application, again, HTML iframe tag will be useful. This is a foundation for the future topics. So for iframe tag, you can implement below code. The purpose is to display the file content. Okay, let me add here. So I want to use iframe. Use begin tag, end tag. We are testing through test.html file. Inside body section, you can use iframe begin tag, iframe end tag. For iframe begin tag, you can use src property. For that, you can provide file name, and iframe is a container. Iframe acts like a container. For container, you need to use height and width. For example, let me use 500 pixel height, width also 500 pixel, or maybe 600. src is one of the property for iframe. Height is another property. Width is the third property. Iframe is just a container to display the file content. Iframe is a container just to display the file content. That file content, file name you can provide to src property. Since iframe is a container, you need to use container height, container width. And for iframe, you can supply file name, or you can provide the remote URL address of that file, or you can provide OData service URL if you're expecting the file content from backend system. The different ways of using SRC property of iframe. One is you can directly provide file name. Today we are going to do that. You can also provide remote URL address of the file. You can provide remote URL address of that file, or you can provide OData service URL. If you're expecting the file content from backend, then you can provide OData service URL. That we are going to do it in the coming days. How to use OData service URL. As of now, let us provide directly file name. Let me import one of the file. In the coming days, we are going to get the file content dynamically from backend via OData service. But as of today, let us use a static file. Let me import one of the file here. You can import from file system, browse it. For example, let me import this Fieri.pdf file. I want to display PDF file content through iframe. So let me use Fieri.pdf file. Just click OK here, close it. And here you can just provide that file name. The file name is Fieri.pdf, so use with slash. In the coming days, we are going to get the file content dynamically from backend via OData service. As of now, we are just hard coding the file name by loading the file within the program or within the project. Okay, let me save and run this. Now you can see there is HTML file content here, and inside iframe, we are loading a PDF file here. iframe is a container. That iframe container is loading a Fieri.pdf file here. This is not the original Fieri application. This is like HTML file, HTML output. But inside that, we are using iframe container. That container is loading the PDF file which is supplied in our program. Now, say suppose I want to load text file. Then you can use multiple iframes. That is possible. It is loading a PDF file, but I want to load along with PDF, I want to load a text file. So that is possible. You can use multiple iframe containers. Okay, so let me try this. This iframe with PDF file. Now say suppose I want to have one more iframe container. For this, let me load a text file here. Let me copy the text file first. Let me import, browse it. Let me select, for example, Fieri notes. There is a text file, Fieri notes.txt file. Let me import that file. There's a text file. I'm expecting this in our output screen. So here you can provide that file name with slash Fieri notes.txt. But this can also come from backend system via OData service through OData service URL. It's a feature topic. So first let me run this. So two iframes, one is displaying PDF file, another is displaying a text file content here. If you want to display side by side, you can decrease this width. Now you can see two files are displayed. One is PDF file with one iframe, text file with another iframe. These are text file content. These are PDF file content. So you can have multiple iframe containers in single screen. That is possible. So this is like HTML iframe. with PDF file content. And this is like HTML iframe text file content. The point here is we can have multiple iframes in a single screen. Okay, so let me copy these lines. Now say suppose I want to load and play audio file. Go with HTML audio tag. So I can implement below code. First of all, we are implementing everything in test.html file. Okay, so if you want to play audio file, what you can do is you can use, for example, audio controls. And here within this audio begin tag, end tag, within this audio begin tag, end tag, you can provide an internal tag that is like source with src property. You can provide audio file content here with an extension, and you can provide the type of the file. For example, audio/mpeg. And here you can provide the audio file name with an extension by using slash. For example, you can use audio file.mp3. So this is a file name and this is a type of the file. So this is a code for using HTML audio tag here. If you want, you can have multiple audio tags in the same output screen you can display. That is possible. Okay, first let me copy these lines. Now let us test directly with video file HTML video tag, HTML video tag. So you can implement below code. Same like audio tag. Let me directly use HTML video tag here. So you have to use begin tag, end tag. Use begin tag, end tag. And within that, you can use source with src. And you need to use type of the file. Video begin tag, video end tag. And within that, you can use source tag with src property and type property. So this is like video tag. You need to have controls, but this video tag will display video container. Video tag will display video container. That's the reason why you need to use height and width. For video container, there should be height and width. For example, let me use height 100 pixel, width 600 pixel, and here you have to use source with src property. You have to provide file name, or you can provide OData service URL if you are expecting video file from backend OData service. We can supply dynamic OData service URL to get the dynamic file content. It can be a video file content from the backend system. As of now, let us provide the video file name directly here. Type of the file, let me use video/mp4. Let me import one video file. Let me try here. And right click, import one video file just for testing purpose, browse it. Okay, let me select this one. Small size video file with the type MP4 extension. Just close this. Now the file is imported here, video file .mp4. Let me provide that with slash. So let us test this. Video tag provides video container. That's the reason why height and width is important. And to supply the file content, you have to use source with src property. To mention the type of the file, you have to use type property. As of now, we have imported the video file and we are displaying. But in the coming days, we are going to get the video file content from backend OData service. So we are going to supply OData service URL here. Okay, so let me test it. Now you can see there is a video container, and in that container you can play that video file here. And you can get maximize option, minimize option. You can stop, start, you can slide it. You can see that. So all options of video file formats will be supported here also. Okay, so in this case, we are trying to display directly on HTML file. This is a test.html file. It is displaying HTML video file content. This is a container. Technically, this is a container. So that's the reason why height and width is required. If you want, you can use multiple video tags in the same output screen. Okay, so let me copy this line. Now here is one important note. SRC property, wherever there is SRC property, it can be video tag source SRC property or audio tag source SRC property or iframe tag SRC property, or it can be image SRC property. Wherever there is SRC property, so SRC property can be for iframe, or it can be audio tag, or it can be for video tag, or it can be image tag. Yesterday we have used image tag. It can be anything here. Iframe tag contains SRC property. Audio tag source contains SRC property. Video tag source SRC is one of the property. Image tag contains SRC property. So wherever there is SRC property, we can use three options here. One is SRC with directly file name, or you can provide SRC with, if the file is remotely available. If the file is remotely available, you can provide remote URL address. Or if the file content is coming from backend, then SRC can have OData service URL here. If the file content is within the project, then you can provide directly file name. If the file content is remotely available in some other location, you can provide remote URL address. If the file content is expected from backend OData service, then you can provide OData service URL. So this last option we are going to experience in the coming days when we go with file upload, file download. Now, say suppose I want to use HTML feature inside original Fiori app. As of now, we are testing in test.html file. We're testing all HTML tags here. This is not part of original Fiori application. So I want to include example HTML feature inside original Fiori app. I want to include HTML feature inside original Fiori app. And for that reason, we have to use HTML class here. So HTML class is provided by SAP inside SAP UI5 framework. So what this HTML class will do? HTML class is used to include any HTML feature inside original Fiori app. HTML class is used to include or embed any HTML feature inside original Fiori application. HTML class is provided by SAP inside SAP UI5 framework under sap.ui.core library. HTML class is provided by SAP inside SAP UI5 framework. And that framework contains SAP UI core library. Inside this SAP UI core library, you can find HTML class. The purpose is to include HTML feature in Fiori app. And this HTML class contains content property. HTML class internal contains content property of type string. HTML class contains content property of type string. So what it can do? HTML class with content property. HTML class with content property, it can be used to display any HTML content as output in original Fiori app. HTML class with content property. It is to display any HTML content or any HTML feature as output in original Fiori application. So let me open that HTML class once. So let me go to documentation here. Let me go to API reference. Let me search for SAP UI core library. SAP UI core library, it contains several classes. One of the class, I think it is HTML is one of the class. You can see that. SAP UI core is library. It's part of SAP UI5 framework. HTML is a class and it contains content as one of the property. So here you can see content is one of the property with data type string, and the purpose is to load HTML content. Very simple. Content property with data type string, the purpose is to display HTML content. It can be market tag, you can include iframe tag, video tag, audio tag, you can include anything inside original Fiori app by using HTML class from SAP UI core library with this content property. In API reference, you can search for this. HTML is a class. So this class is part of SAP UI core library, which contains content property. The purpose is to display HTML file content or HTML content. It is to display HTML content in our original Fiori app. So this is a library name. This is class name. So all the description I've written here. You can go through this. It is part of SAP UI core library. That type is string with content property. The purpose is to display HTML content. HTML content inside original Fiori app. For that reason, we can use content property from HTML class. So let me write step-by-step procedure here. Step-by-step procedure to include HTML feature inside original Fiori app. Okay, first let me save this. HTML class from SAP UI core library. SAP UI core library is part of SAP UI5 framework. So we can use it in Fiori application. Okay, step one, what you can do is now you can open object view.xml file. Object view.xml file. This is part of original Fiori app. So open that file, and what you do is just create one container with ID. Create container with ID property. Here the container can be a layout, it can be a panel, it can be icon tab filter, it can be simple form, because all these are containers. Container can be any layout, vertical layout, grid layout, matrix layout, horizontal layout, flex box layout. It can be any layout. That also a container. Or you can use a panel as a container. You can use icon tab filter as a container. You can use simple form as a container. You take one of the container, but it should have ID property. That is step one. Step two is open object controller.js file. We are dealing with object view, so it's better to go to object controller. And object controller contains, I think, init method. So you can go inside on init method. It's for initialization. Go inside on init method. On init is a standard method for initialization. So go to on init method and write some further code to include HTML feature. So after going to that on init method, what you need to do, you have to create an object for HTML class. You have to create an object for HTML class with content property. Don't forget that. According to documentation, HTML class contains content property. So use that property. For content property, you need to provide HTML code tag or HTML tag related coding. It can be market tag, audio tag, video tag, iframe tag, or any other tag. For content property, you need to supply HTML tag related code. After that, get the reference of container using ID property. Whichever container you have created in view.xml file, you have to get the reference of that container using ID. If I use icon tab filter, provide ID, and you can get the reference of that container using ID in controller. And finally, add HTML object to that container for display purpose. Finally, add HTML object to container, because here we are creating an object to HTML class. That is nothing but HTML object. That HTML object, you need to add it to container for display purpose. We are creating object for HTML class. That's nothing but HTML object. That final HTML object you need to assign to container. Then only it is displayed in the Fiori original application. Step 3, save all the files, run the app. view file, controller file, save all the files and run the app. That's our original testing procedure. Okay, what you do is you can write this code. You can implement below code. At view level. View level. That means in our case, we are using object view.xml file. Implement below code. At view level, that is object view.xml file, implement this. So first, let me create one container. According to step 1, let us create container. For example, let me take one new icon tab filter. I want to take a new icon tab filter. So let me close this. All these things are not required now. Let us not worry about test.html. Let us go back to our original application, object view.xml file. Go to this, you can scroll down, add one icon tab filter. Inside icon tab bar, item section, here you can add one new icon tab filter in order to load HTML features. So let me use icon tab filter. Just use empty icon tab filter, that's it. But provide ID here. For example, my icon tab filter. Provide some ID. Provide some text. For example, this is to display HTML features. And you can provide some icon color. Then if you want, you can use icon, SAP-icon colon. You can use icon name, for example, cart-2. So we are trying to create a new icon tab filter with ID property. That is important here. And icon tab filter is empty in this case. It is just an empty block. In this block, at runtime, via controller, we will load HTML feature in content area dynamically. At runtime, via controller, we will load HTML feature inside this content area dynamically. So in the next step, we are going to do that. So at view level, just create an empty icon tab filter with ID property. That's it. The content will come dynamically here. So this is basically step 1. In object view.xml file, we are using icon tab filter. That's like container. Let me copy these lines. View level, for example, in our case, object view.xml file, implement below code. This is basically like step 1. Now step 2 is at controller level. That means in our case, object controller.js file. Implement below code. Step 2 at controller level, that is in our case, object controller.js file. You can implement some low code. So let me add that code. But here, this code should be implemented inside on init method. Don't forget that. That's initialization method. So let me go to this controller, object controller. Object controller contains on init method. I think in one of the example we have used it already. Again, we are using it for different reason. So on init method, earlier we have used to initialize OData service. If you are expecting data from second OData service, these lines are implemented by connecting to OData service with OData model. That is done in the earlier sessions. To access second OData service, we are trying to initialize second OData service with OData model. Now, what we can do is we can add some other code here inside on init method. So what you need to do is create an object for HTML class with content property. Create an object for HTML class with content property. So for that reason, you can use var HTML object. New is a keyword to create an object for any class. New is a keyword, you can use it to create an object for a class. In our case, the class name is HTML class. And it contains content property. For that content property, you can supply HTML tag coding. But HTML class belongs to which library? HTML class belongs to SAP UI core library. So let us use that. There are different classes in HTML class. Sorry. In SAP UI core library, there are different classes here. And see, HTML is one of the class. Inside SAP UI core library, icon is another class. Invisible text is one of the class. Item is another class. They are all part of SAP UI core library. So HTML class is one of the class in SAP UI core library. Apart from this class, there are other classes. Item class, list item class, invisible text, etc. But in this case, we are using new keyword to create object for HTML class. HTML class belongs to SAP UI core library. And HTML class contains content property. So use that property. And for content property, you can supply any HTML tag code here of your choice according to your requirement. So this is basically creating object for HTML class with content property. And for content property, we have to provide HTML tag code. After supplying HTML tag coding, now get the reference of the container using ID. Here we have created icon tab filter. So get the reference of icon tab filter content area by using its ID. So here you can use this dot get view. You are already aware of this type of syntax. This dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of icon tab filter. That is my icon tab filter is ID. So provide that ID. So here you will get icon tab filter container. It's basically a container. You can simply call it as a container. If you want, you can make it like icon tab filter. So this dot get view dot by ID, provide the ID of that container, you'll get that container reference. If you provide the ID of simple form, you'll get the simple form container reference. If you provide the ID of vertical layout, you'll get the reference of that vertical layout. So you can use any container. That container reference you can access by using this dot get view dot by ID. Now after this, what we need to do? We need to add HTML object to container. We need to add HTML object to container. That HTML object contains HTML related tag. HTML object internally holds HTML tag coding. So what you can do is you can use icon tab filter dot add content. Add content is standard method of icon tab filter. Icon tab filter contains content begin tag, content end tag. For that, you can add a content dynamically by using add content method. So what type of content you want to add? I want to add HTML object content. For icon tab filter, we are adding a content by using add content method. We are supplying HTML object here. HTML object internally holds HTML code. So these 3 lines you need to write in on init method if you want to include any HTML feature inside original Fiori app. Okay, let me take this. This is a syntax. In one init method, this is like create object for HTML class. Get the reference of the container, output container. Add HTML object to that container. So here, let me write some simple note here. Create an object for HTML class. Content property. HTML class contains content property. I shown you in the documentation. And here, get the reference. Get the reference of container, output container. Output container, in our case, it is icon tab filter. And finally, add HTML object to that output container. But this HTML object contains what? HTML object, we are providing HTML tag code. But we are going to do it. Very simple. Right, so say suppose I want to display this one. I want to display text with scrolling inside original Fiori app. Not in test.html. Instead of that, I want to display text with scrolling inside original Fiori application. So why don't you use this? If you want, you can use this. Market tag with h1 and provide some text. This is a HTML tag code that you can supply here. You can supply HTML market tag code here. Audio tag or video tag, iframe tag, whatever, you can supply here in single quotes. If the code contains multiple lines, if HTML code contains multiple lines, it's better to separate each line in single quotes with plus operator. Provide each line in single quote with plus operator here. That is to concatenate the entire code. Okay, so if you closely observe this now, we are providing market tag, begin tag, end tag. In that we are using h1 begin tag, end tag. For that we are providing some text. I'm expecting this text with scrolling option inside original Fiori application now with the help of icon tab filter content area. So when there are multiple lines in original HTML code, you can use each line in single quote and use plus operator for concatenating that code. Each line you put it in single quote and use plus operator to concatenate the code. So first line contains single quote, second line contains single quotes, third line contains single quotes. And each line you are separating with plus operator. That means you are concatenating with plus operator. Okay, so let me save and run this now. First, let me test this. Okay, you have to test your original application. So you can right click here, run application in FLP sandbox. That is how you can test your original application now. So it loads your original Fiori screen. Now let me go to second view, that is object view. In object view, you can see there is icon tab filter, and icon tab filter, in this case, there is HTML feature. It is displaying the text with scrolling inside original Fiori application now. These are text with scrolling, and it is displayed inside icon tab filter content area. That is because of HTML class. So we are able to get that. So you can include any HTML feature output inside original Fiori app in this manner by using HTML class from SAP UI core library. Okay, so let me copy these lines. And save and run the app. You can save and right click Fiori project folder, run app in FLP sandbox. That's how we generally test our application locally. Now say suppose I want to display iframe output inside original Fiori application. I want to include, for example, HTML iframe tag inside original Fiori app. Same thing. You can use as it is here. Here we have to supply HTML iframe tag code. Whatever we have tested earlier, that you can put it here, HTML iframe tag code for content property of HTML class. And I'm expecting that, for example, PDF file output inside our original Fiori app icon tab filter content area. So here, let me go back to this iframe. This iframe is part of HTML. That code I want to use inside on init method of object controller. So let us supply that here. So there are two lines. You can put it in single line, or let us put it in double, two lines here, but each line should be in single quotes. Each line should be in single quotes. And after each line, it's better to use plus operator to concatenate that entire code. This first line in single quotes and plus operator, after that next line in single quotes. Whatever HTML code we have written, that same code we have used here for content property of HTML class. We are expecting Fiori.pdf file. Okay, let me check whether it works or not. You can save and run the application. So here there is HTML tag, that is HTML icon tab filter. Icon tab filter content area is loading iframe here. iframe is loading a PDF file content. But this PDF file can come from backend system via OData service. That's a different story we are going to discuss in the coming days. But as of now, when you run the app, it is running Fiori application now. In Fiori app, there is object view. Object view contains icon tab filter. Icon tab filter is loading a PDF file content with the help of HTML iframe. So it's working according to our expectation. Okay, let me just make you understand this. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to load Fiori application. Fiori application is loading icon tab filter here. SAP, okay, let me write it like this. SAP Fiori app contains content, that is icon tab filter as a container. SAP Fiori app contains icon tab filter as a container that is internally loading HTML class object. HTML class object is connected with HTML iframe tag in this case. HTML class object is having a content with HTML iframe tag code, and that is displaying a PDF file content here. With the help of HTML iframe tag, we are displaying PDF file. So PDF file is displayed in SAP Fiori application now with this particular technique. So SAP Fiori app uses some container like, for example, icon tab filter. Icon tab filter can load HTML class object. HTML class object can have any HTML tag. In this example, we are using HTML iframe tag. HTML iframe tag is loading PDF file content. So that's the reason why we are getting this PDF file in our original application. Okay, this is like display PDF file inside original Fiori app. Let me copy these lines. Container is same. You can just change content of HTML class. So we are using HTML code here in this content property of HTML class. That is important. In previous case, we have used market tag here. Here we are using iframe tag. Now say suppose let me play a video file here inside original Fiori application. Include HTML video tag inside original Fiori app. So the same approach you need to follow. If you want, you can use different containers. I'm using only one icon tab filter. If you want, you can have another container, panel, simple form, or whatever. You can have multiple containers with multiple different HTML features. All those things are possible. Just create a separate object for HTML class. Okay, so here, instead of using iframe, say suppose I want to use HTML video tag code. I want to load and play video file inside original Fiori app. So you can supply HTML video tag code for content property of HTML class. And that is loaded in the output through icon tab filter content area. Okay, so let me take that video tag code. There are 3 lines for HTML video tag. Okay, let me use all those lines. Let me go to this, provide HTML video tag code. In single quotes, each line you put it in single quote and plus operator. Use plus operator after each line. Except for last line. So here, what we're trying to do, we're trying to provide each line in single quote and we're concatenating the rest of the code. The next line, there is a single quote and we are concatenating with plus operator. And the third line, there is a single quote, plus operator is not required because that's the last line. So we are just simply supplying HTML video tag coding here. Now you can save and run it. So let me go to this icon tab filter. Icon tab filter now contains a video container here. You can play that video file inside original Fury application. So you can see that. Icon tab filter is part of original Fury app. So that is loading HTML video tag feature here. So it's working fine. Let me take the screenshot. So what we're trying to do is SAP Fury app. Here we are using icon tab filter. We're using icon tab filter. For icon tab filter, we are trying to display HTML class object. We have created object for HTML class, so we are calling it as HTML class object. That HTML class object is embedded with HTML video tag in this case. And HTML video tag ultimately will load and play video file content. So Fury app, we are taking one container in the form of icon tab filter. That icon tab filter is having HTML class object. HTML class object is supplied with HTML video tag code. HTML video tag code will load and play video file content in your output screen. So because of that, you're able to get this video container with video file. So video file content in original Fury app. Let me copy this version. Now let me make you understand with one simple diagram here. You can see in our view.xml file, we have registered several libraries here. There are various libraries. One of the libraries is SAP UI core library. One of the library is SAP UI core library. Okay, so here core is a prefix we have used, but this is one of the library. Today also we have used that library, but we have used it via controller to create object for HTML class. So this library basically contains different classes here. It contains something like item class. Item is one of the class. Contains list item class, I think. Yes, it contains list item class. And it also contains something like invisible text class. Similarly, it contains HTML class. And there are other classes. But basically, SAP UI core is a library that is part of UI5 framework. It contains collection of classes like this. So in today's session, what we are trying to do is we are trying to use HTML class here. For this HTML class, we can supply any HTML related code so that you can display HTML features inside original Fiori application. So this HTML class contains content property. With that property, we can supply any HTML code here, so that you can display any HTML feature in original Fiori application. You can supply HTML iframe tag, or you can supply HTML marquee tag, or you can supply HTML audio tag, or HTML video tag, whatever, or any other tag. So with the help of HTML class, we can display HTML feature like iframe tag or marquee tag, audio tag, video tag by using HTML class from SAP UI core library. Very simple, just remember this. Okay, let me give one simple rule here before we stop this. There is one simple rule. Whenever you try to supply HTML code, rules to be followed when we provide HTML code for HTML class content property. Two simple rules you need to follow, otherwise you'll get error. Rule 1 is make sure that each HTML line is provided within single quotes. Make sure that each HTML line is provided within single quotes. Rule 2, make sure that this operator is provided at the end of each HTML line, except for last line. Make sure that you use plus operator at the end of each HTML line except for last line. Plus operator is just to concatenate the entire code line by line. Follow these two rules whenever you include HTML code for HTML class content property. Okay, if you have any doubts, you can ask me now.
Yeah, I have a doubt.
Yeah, what's the doubt?
Yeah, actually, for HTML, why you are writing the code in controller, because you are not handling any event, right?
No, we have to create an object dynamically. Directly at view level, it won't take. At view level, it won't accept because view.xml file is an XML file. It won't accept HTML code directly. That's the reason why through controller we have to do it.
Okay.
So here, object view, for example, object view view.xml. So this XML file directly will not support HTML code. So indirectly, we are doing it via controller. We're doing it via controller because XML file supports XML file syntax. It won't directly support HTML code. XML file contains XML tags. They're case sensitive, but HTML tags are not case sensitive. So there will be total ambiguity That's the reason why try to do it via controller. XML tags are case sensitive. HTML tags are not case sensitive. And XML file directly doesn't support HTML code. That's the reason why we're trying to do it indirectly via controller through onInit method to load HTML feature. Okay, yeah, next down.
Yeah. One more doubt I have. In layout editor, suppose I'll open a panel. After panel, some folders are coming, then contents is coming. So in between content and that panel, these are screen elements or properties?
No, panel contains content. If you are using panel contains content. Content is a property, basically internally. It's like a container. Content is also like a container for displaying collection of screen elements, labels and screen elements, something like that. So according to documentation, content is a property, but when you open in layout editor, it will show as a separate tag. If you want, you can use in your code also, when you write manually, you can use panel begin tag. Within that, you can use content, begin tag, end tag, but that is not mandated, it's optional. But when you open to layout editor, it will show the content as a separate option.
But apart from content, some other fields are coming also.
I'm not sure about other options, but generally content is used everywhere. There are hundreds of properties. You need not take that so seriously. Whatever you want to display, that is done through directly content. And content can have its own screen elements. Screen elements, you can have its properties. Properties can be configured right side. That's what we do generally. Yeah, next down. So right side editor, right side of that editor, you will have screen elements with its properties. Those properties you can configure, but there are other properties inside the panel. I'm not sure what exactly it is. Yeah, next down.
Vijay, for audio and video, is there any file size limitation?
I don't think there is any limitation, but when you try to upload the file, you can restrict that. While loading that file, I don't think there is any limitation. If you want, I think you can restrict, but when we go for file uploader, there you can have a restriction. File uploader is one of the class. We are going to use it in the coming days to upload a video file content or audio file content, PDF file content. When you upload any file content, you can provide some size property restriction. And what type of file you want to support, that also is provided. So, file types, what type of files you want to allow, those things you can provide. For example, I want to allow only PDF, not other files, then you can provide PDF. I want to allow only MP4, then you can provide. I want to allow MP4 and PDF file, so you can restrict those things. For file uploader class, we can have size property, file type property, max length property, and other options. So file uploader, we are going to discuss this. This is a future topic, file uploader and file downloader. There you will have restrictions. There you can control. Yeah, next down.
And Vijay, one more thing. I'm trying different options, like in if condition, if I'm trying to compare with the two fields, one parameter is null, another parameter is not null. How do we do that? I'm trying, it's not working for me.
So you can use like this. For example, if country is something like this null, you can use double quotes. You can use blank values within double quotes. Something like this.